today the subject is generative AI, and it is separating the noise from the truth. I'm very aware that all of you know a lot about AI, so this is going to be a mixed session of questions and answers and really mining as much information as we can from our experts. I want to first start though by acknowledging the Eora Nation and the Gadigal lands in which we meet today, particularly at this seminal time and after the weekend we've just had. I think it's really important to have that strong welcome to country here this morning. AI. We could have had Chris Reason here today, who was your original host, and we considered computer generating him. He is in Israel covering the war in Israel at the moment, so I'm your last minute replacement. So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Kellie Nuttall from Deloitte, who's an AI expert, and Lucio Ribeiro, who's new to Seven only the last week via Optus. I met him first last week at a performance of Beauty and the Beast, so it's lovely to see you again, Lucio, in slightly different circumstances.
Yeah.
I want to get you to first introduce yourselves, because I've been given a kind of computer generated bio of both of you. But firstly I want to hear from you your experience in AI, what surprised you about the developments most recently, and what fascinates you about this area, Kellie.
Okay, so I work at Deloitte. I lead our strategy and transformation business, but before that I've always led the AI capability at Deloitte. I'm actually a psychologist, decision psychologist by background, so not a techie. And I've always worked in teams that are really about helping organisations get value out of data, whether that's in an organisation or consulting to organisations. What surprised me about generative AI, so I guess for me, as everyone's in that, you know, they love to use a Drake meme of like Hotline Bling where something's like bad and then something's good. That was me talking to executives about AI up until 2023. No one wanted to talk about it. I tried to find like one person on an executive board who would just be like, I'd be like, you're my person, you're my person. And now literally everyone wants to talk about this. This is on the executive agenda, every organisation in every industry. I think I've spent like time with at least 60 to 70 organisations in the last 3 months talking about what this means for business. So this is AI's moment in the sun to really start to show up in the business world, and I think that's super exciting.
Suddenly they're picking up the phone to you.
Yeah.
Not to Drake. Lucio, for you, you're new to Seven, as I said, only been there a week, but it shows a big focus from Seven on AI, because that's your expertise too.
Yeah, right. I'm so excited to be here. Can you do a meditation?
Five deep breaths.
And actually I feel slightly bad because I'm giving it back to you, so apologies. I'll try to address everybody.
I got the comfy seats.
But I've been, I'm at Seven now. I moved from Optus at Seven in the marketing team led by Mel Hopkins, who was also my leader back at Qantas. Rob, it'd be really nice if someone stopped yelling downstairs. Someone don't mind.
Stop having fun, please.
And then our commitment obviously is at Seven. We are committed to add as much value as we can to our viewers. It's a business that's going through enormous transformation with a lot of capability, a lot of talented people in the business, which has been not a surprise, but I knew there were talented people, but the fact that how developed and how progressive these people are is ridiculous. It's really fun to be there. But my background goes retrospectively Seven now, before Optus, leading on the technology innovation at Optus as a tech business, where I got to work with metaverses and driverless cars and satellites, and got to learn all the basic technology, fundamental technology. Before this, in consulting for US Army, JP Morgan, BMW, some big brands around digital transformation. And prior to this, I was in advertising, and I got interest in artificial intelligence maybe about 10 years ago, when I was simply under the hypothesis of understanding the difference between you have knowledge and you have understanding. And for knowledge requires memory, and muscle for the second one, philosophy and creativity, if you like. And that's why, okay, we can work this together. So we work with a brand, which I shall not mention, that we created 10 years ago. We created a bunch of weather-generated ads. It's a car brand with a big star, 3-point star. So you made And we work around Facebook back in the time. They would work in these advertising. They would change based on the weather. So would it be raining? We would be features on the car around safety. And then would be a sunny days. We would be advertising cars with air conditioning, whatever that would be. But you got the point. So I was testing around there. And then eventually, the biggest thing is we won a lot of awards back about 10 years. We worked with this brand that was very humble and didn't have too much resources, and fast food. And then we wanted to do advertising at scale, creativity. So we tied in a bunch of profiles of different people with different creatives to match those things. So that's been a progressive thing. So yeah, now here at 7, and looking forward to see how I can work with my colleagues, my Chief Digital Officer, G, who's amazing, phenomenal, how we can start bringing generative AI and AI to our viewers.
We're going to talk about the potential, also the risk of generative AI, but I feel like although we're preaching to the choir here, just to go back to basics, if we talk about classic machine learning, we're being able to, say, identify a photo of a cat. Now with generative AI, we can create a really realistic photo of a cat. So take us back to the basic definition of what we're talking about today.
I think you just stole how I explained it to people. So you did really well.
Can I get a job with Deloitte? No, I can't.
Does everybody understand? Like, if you understand the difference between generative? Yep. Okay. So I mean, I think the thing is, what I don't want people to get mixed up with is generative AI is the only answer now. So I think what we've got a great opportunity with organisations and businesses we work with is to actually show that just because you can generate something, that's personalisation, there's huge opportunities there, but there's also the ability then to take data and predict who should get that generated image, and that's traditional AI, right? So one's around prediction machines, one's about creation machines, and they actually go really nicely together. But what I worry about is you see a lot of leaders now going, the answer is generative to everything, and it's like, actually, probably, you know, if you take energy and resources and climate and all the climate change challenges we're dealing with, like, I spoke at an event the other night where they were all talking about what does generative AI mean. I'm like, well, your big opportunity is in digital twins and simulation, and that's more your traditional AI, machine learning, prediction. So I think, you know, just again, thinking about the problem we're solving, is it a problem where we're trying to predict, or is it a problem where we're trying to actually generate content? One's very productivity oriented, but generative AI is also, it's a risk just thinking about it through productivity lens. There is, and I use again, I'm all about Drake this morning. You know the Drake generated song, the Heart on My Sleeve, it went 15 million views on TikTok. It turned out it wasn't Drake, it was just trained on a whole lot of his music. If everyone, so generative AI, if he had used generative AI to generate beats in the background of his songs, that's a really good use case of doing what he did more productively, doing what he did differently. But I think generative AI, and this is where not enough people are thinking about it, gives you the opportunity to do something that's new and generate new products, new services, which is so exciting for media industry particularly. So Drake, all his lawyers, crack down, copyright protection, let's protect. What if it won't take long before some artist sees a new revenue stream, a new business model in this, and they start to go, I'm going to upload all of my samples of music and let my fans co-create with me using generative AI. Maybe I'll even let them take a revenue share out of it. So even though I think we think about productivity, think about what new things, what different things, not just about doing things differently, but also doing different things with this technology.
A lot of creative people in the room and at this whole festival who are thinking, we're seeing AI move from something that's quite rudimentary to something that can be creative and convincingly as well. So that's obviously a potential threat to jobs, or, you can see the potential there if you collaborate. But firstly, what is the conversation that people are having with you when those executives call Deloitte and say, we want to harness the potential of AI? What are they most interested in utilising?
Yeah, look, there's a few dimensions. So let me go through maybe what some of the conversation topics are at the moment for leaders in these organisations. The first is acknowledging that this is real, this is a disruption, because it's very much at the top of the hype cycle, in the Gartner hype cycle. We think it's going to be 2 to 3 years before it becomes part of our productivity suite. So you've got 2 years as a leader, which isn't a lot of time to decide what you're going to do, where you're going to place your bets. So it's real, it's here, acknowledging that our white collar workers are actually not immune to this. One of the big areas is, okay, and we've just released an excellent report, recommend it, not just because I wrote it, but it's called Generation AI. So what we did a piece of research of who's using this technology, and what we found is it's actually the youngers. It's the people under 24 in the workforce. 58% of uni students, our next grad cohorts, are using this. They're not using it to cheat, they're using it to interact, make their language better, deeply understand content. They're all hitting our workforce next year. Media, technology, financial services, professional services, these are all industries that are ripe for disruption with this. Execs are worrying about if that's the future of our workforce and we're not ready as a business, we've got a big gap to close. So one of the things execs are now thinking about is how do we not constrain that innovation? How do we actually harness this innovation of people who can solve these problems in different ways to what our traditional workforce can, but how do we point them at the things and the problems we want them to solve as opposed to just working on random things? So, yeah.
Sorry, I would invite you guys to, like, we have this practice of bundling things just for the easy cognitive process, but I think because we just kind of this first generation, I would invite you guys to unbundle that thing and think about a couple of things here, just to build up on what Kellie was saying. I like to see the use cases. I was talking to you before around generative AI. It's not like one use case for a technology. It's a multiple of use cases for a technology. I like to call this 5 Ps, just because we love Ps in marketing communication. But you got to look, my suggestion is to look these under the optics of use cases, aggregated use cases, but not aggregated technology. And the 5 Ps are product, am I going too slow enough? To grab that? So product, people, productivity, a promotion, and personalization, almost like a customer experience perspective. And if you look throughout these lanes of these 5 big hubs of use cases, you're going to be seeing different entry points and different ways to test there. And the second thing to finalize is, I've been in technology for a long time, so many of you guys, and you see the technology there is this generational perspective of why on earth you're here for, right? So you have this first generation, then second generations almost go up, go down, reassess, find, oh, there's a new players, there's a new technology, there's a new support. So you talk about driverless cars. Driverless cars would not be a thing until 5G is fully embedded. You not even think about like, okay, do I really need, yeah, you need infrastructure. You didn't have cloud at scale, now you do. So now we're actually talking about maybe the 4th generation of driverless cars, and we might need a 5th, then we're gonna come. Coming back to generative AI, we are the 1st generation. I think that what we need to really be mindful of is the fastest, OpenAI revenue is about $1.1 billion. About 80% of these revenue is coming from startups. So my invitation is to think about this next generation of products that you and myself are going to be using in the next 3 years, going to have that technology as native. So it's not a matter if we like or not, it's not a matter to go there and be a prompt engineer and just type it up. It's a fact that we're going to be users. But the fact is, there's an old say that if you're playing poker, you don't know who the sucker at the table is, that means that's you. And if we don't know the technology, how the technology serves us, means we are being used by the technology. So think about generation, utilization, and growth. And my invitation is to think about the 5 Ps.
But sorry, I'm just going to jump in on that. One of the things that is driving me bonkers at the moment, having executive conversations about this, is everyone is obsessed with the use case. Everyone's like, what's the use case? What's that other telco doing? What's that other bank doing? Now, that's fine, but like I think the actual thing is, it comes down to often if you don't know what this technology is, what it's good at, what it's not good at, you use it as a surrogate to go, well, it must be what they're doing, and that's their measure of success for the technology, as opposed to understanding what the technology is. But use cases, so I don't like digital touch screens at restaurants. They drive me nuts, especially with kids, where they want to customise cheeseburgers and drinks that aren't on the options and things like that. That is a really great example of a productivity digital transformation initiative for the restaurants that use it. No workforce, cheap and effective, but it doesn't delight customers. Well, it doesn't delight my cohort of customer, my segment. often you look at the employee up at the counter and they're sitting there bored too because no one's talking to them. So I think when we think about use cases for technology, it's almost like thinking of the new triple bottom line for what a good use case is. If we're going to drive productivity benefits, how do we actually, at the same time, delight customers and employee value proposition? Because that's how you drive sustained productivity, and I don't think leaders are thinking enough about the multiple dimensions of what we're trying to get out of this technology. If you're going to invest in the foundations for it, you might as well actually try to drive better customer experience and employee value proposition out of it as well. Amazon Go does this really well, right? So it's a productivity game, but it's customer experience. So I think just really think when you hear people talking about what's the use case, like really challenge us to think, could this be more than just one of those Ps, but could it tick many Ps?
I think if we
challenge my Ps.
No, I love your Ps. I just want the Ps simultaneously. I want.
And also personalisation for you is very different to Lucio. I mean, it could be very different
Correct.
for every person here. So how do you then harness the data you're collecting as part of this to personalise that process? You've got 2 years, right? Lots of people representing companies in the room. Let's talk about the steps in order to get one step ahead of your competition in this space. I imagine that data collection, data analysis is the biggest part, because there are companies like Amazon who've been doing this for decades. I mean, since the beginning of just pop-up chat bots on websites, and accumulate, that the accumulation of data is worth so much to those companies now. So what do you do over the next 2 years to play catch up with companies like that who own this space?
Yeah, so I think you start, like we can already see it, the organisations that have invested in their data platforms up until this point are well better positioned to deal with this than other companies who are not. So what we're finding is a lot of the first steps that we're talking to companies at the moment, they think they're going to go off and build 5 use cases, they're going to take out they're going to redesign work and they're going to, take out costs out of their business. But then we end up going, actually, you've got a $2 million data transformation program you really need to do. Otherwise, you're just using generic off-the-shelf tools and you're not differentiated, because the barrier to entry to use these technologies has never been lower. Any organisation, AI used to be the domain of companies who could afford it and startups who were invested in it. Now anyone can use it. So the barrier to differentiate's never actually been higher, but the barrier to the bar to differentiate's never been higher. The barrier to entry's never been lower. So data, really picking where your use cases are. So not just thinking about those productivity ones, but also ones that you're actually going to differentiate from your competitors. Offer something new. Challenge the status quo and the business models. A lot of the productivity, to your point, first generation, a lot of the productivity benefits are going to come through the products you've already invested in. So if you look at what Copilot's doing with Microsoft's doing with Copilot, I should say. That's, we saw, we've run hackathons in Deloitte. It was quite funny, where everyone came up with these great ideas for 4-week hackathon. Here's all the ideas we could use generative AI in the way we do our work. Next week, Copilot launched and had done most of them. They're already obsolete. So I think if you're thinking about productivity, all of the vendors, whether you're a Salesforce, you're an Adobe, you're already thinking about ServiceNow. They're all thinking about how they embed this. So it's really around thinking about how we could use it in a different way, I think, and what data we need to do that in a way that's differentiated. And you might not even have the data, you might need to get it from somewhere else. So what ecosystem partnerships do you need? And that becomes really important.
And something like Seven, Lucio, I mean, we've always collected ratings data, but it needs to go above and beyond that without giving, company secrets away in terms of collecting data on our viewers to make sure that we are personalising a product to them.
Yeah, well, I think just I'll answer the question, I promise. I think that, just complement what Kellie's saying, we got to think about infrastructure, right? I think that the two biggest bottlenecks now in the progressive, if there is any bottlenecks on generative AI, are larger language models. That's the number one. Building up your own, cleaning up, clean house data lakes and things like that. It's pretty that's the race. The second one is the high costs of GPUs, and everybody's running from Meta to Google to Amazon, NVIDIA, everybody is. NVIDIA is the number one. So you need to think about these two kind of infrastructures. Then the data, and let's talk about Seven. So we do have, obviously, viewers' data, but we sit in an abundance of metadata data around our own content. We know what is drama, we know what's sports, we know what's entertainment, we know times of the day, we know days of the week, we know preference, we know the general culture that's happening out there that's impacting. we do have access to these. And then for us, I mean, a big opportunity comes around the personalization, the customer experience, obviously. But that costs a whole lot of money and time, because you need to tie up this data. Not necessarily all this data has been built in a way that it can accommodate now. You need to review data entries and make sure that everything's tagged accordingly. So we don't want it to be, I mean, you possibly are familiar with the generative AI hallucinations. We don't want to have a million hallucinations say, hey, turn it on here and watch this terror movie. And I say, oh man, I'm freaking out with terror. Well, I don't know what's happening.
I thought I was watching a rom-com,
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of work to be done. And I think that just moving forward into, I learned very heavily at Optus. It was a big lesson, professional lesson at Optus, learning about the technology that enables the use cases technologies. And then coming back to learn about 5G, around cloud, around computing power and all this sort of stuff. And that's most of the time that I go into a conversation, say, yeah, we're gonna run this thing. And like, okay, you don't have the infrastructure to run that thing. Mm-hmm. That's number one. And then second, you don't have the legalities in place for data preservation, cleanliness, and protection for that stuff. And I'm not even getting to the ethics, which honestly, it's like Kellie. She knows that stuff. I don't. I just think that
you get the fun stuff, I get the hard stuff.
Well, it is the hard stuff.
Yeah, and it's a big question. We'll get to the ethics of it too. Let's talk firstly at the moment about the current generation. I think most people and everyone will be familiar with ChatGPT. I guess a simple use at the moment for anyone to generate their own content.
Yep.
Before we talk about where to from there, what are the benefits you see of technology like that for corporations, and particularly in the creative space, to create even copy for newspapers, for advertising, for real estate?
Oh, I mean, productivity hugely. So our research is showing that anyone that's using something even as simple as ChatGPT regularly in their work week is saving up to about 5 hours a week, which is, not insignificant. That doesn't mean that we go, I mean, lots of employers will go, that's great, we can, including my own, we can move to 4-day work weeks. That's an option. You can also do way more cool things. I don't get anywhere near enough time to think about strategically the things I want to, like where I want to take my organisation moving forward. I'm never up on, like someone used to say to me, it was a great analogy, like you're never up on a balcony, you're down on a dance floor too much. I would love more balcony time to think about what the future of my clients are dealing with. I'm always stuck in the weeds of doing stuff that could have actually been way more productively done with a technology like this. So there's that, I think. But for creatives, do
you see the potential as
huge.
Greater than the risk?
Absolutely, but I'm a massive evangelist and optimist around AI. I really think that we are dealing with some truly wicked problems in society, that technology like this is going to be a no-brainer working hand in hand with machines. We're not talking about taking humans out of the loop with any of these technologies. And so for creatives, it was funny, I was sitting down with someone the other day that had a background in, they did software development plus also film and movie at uni, and they didn't know which way they wanted to go. And just listening to them talk, the way they're now using this technology, when they're using a generative technology like an image generation, they're sitting there and going, what do I want the viewer to feel? What's the weather like on that day? So we're waiting for a train to come and it's a winter's day, and they do all this amazing prompting, and how do I want that person to feel in the brand of what I create, etc. If it was me, and I'm not a creative, I would have been like, dude, waiting for a train. So he's much better. That's the thing, creatives knowing how to use this technology, experts knowing how to use them, creativity, I just see creativity as bolstered. It's human and machine collaboration working together. That's super exciting, because I thought this was going to be amazing. I was going to generate all my awesome artwork for my house, and in my head I'm a frustrated artist who's never been able to, turns out I was pretty shithouse still. So,
I saw a few things to generate in AI. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
I think another another angle on these is about access, scale, and I don't know. I got really excited last week. I was reading on 11 Labs. And literally now, with a half an hour, you can upload a video of you, a segment you done on Sunrise, let's say, and that dubs all in 10 languages in 10 minutes, and does look pretty much.
You could sleep in and outsource to
You
an
could be
avatar.
fluent in Spanish.
I could be fluent in Spanish, but I think the first thing that came to my mind, at least in our world there, is access. Like, how can I now get something that's been created, a segment, and now expand access to pockets of population in Australia who first language is not reading English, and in a very genuine way. So that's just one thing. Another thing that's becoming quite big now, it's this concept of, you probably heard, digital twin for physical buildings, right? Now this same term has been deployed for people.
Yep.
Okay, like a physical, digital twin of a person. And I was reading there, Character AI launched these group chats of bots based in personalities. You could be chatting to the Prime Minister in a chat with someone else and provoking debates. I'm not going to go to cultural debates here, but the fact is you could have this access. So I think that the way I see is, at least in our world in media entertainment, there's an element of scale. There's an element of access to pockets of viewers and population that perhaps can take advantage of that content. And there is, I mean, the experience. I go back to the experience.
But new business models too, like we're already seeing some of the most popular K-pop artists coming out now are AI-generated avatars. And so it's just
They
like...
seemed like AI generated in the
They did,
first place,
exactly.
really, to be honest,
That's
in the
why.
flesh,
That's
in
why it
real
was so
life.
uncanny. Yeah, but there's a new business model right now. So someone like a Seven who already knows how to dominate in media could be like, I'm going to get into the business of having our own line of pop stars. You know, like there's just new business models here that are just, no one knows what they're all going to play out to be yet, but we know they're coming and they're going to disrupt.
I think we tried that with Bardot, by the way, in the
I
late
loved
90s.
Bardot.
Yeah, it was a hit back then. Could be again, but AI generated.
And a generated pop stars.
Well, let's
Oh my
firstly
God.
focus on the ethics of the current generation before we move to what's next. I was at a Country Press Association event on Friday, and they were saying one of their uses for AI is taking, say, for example, advertising for a house that's for sale that's put out by a real estate agent, and then using AI to transform that into copy for the paper. So does that come with the disclaimer saying that that's generated by AI?
It's
like
funny.
you would with a digitally altered photoshopped image now?
Well, this is a really interesting one, and I don't know the right or wrong answer on this, and I think it depends is the answer, because, I mean, we are using AI everywhere in our lives daily, and when I check into my phone with my face, it doesn't say, hey, PS, that was AI. You know, like, I think it could become quite overwhelming if we start, like, just tagging. There's risks in freaking people out around it who don't understand what it is and what it isn't as well, so I think we're going to see, it depends on the use case. So definitely, like, you know, the likes of Adobe with Firefly, they're starting to think about how they, you know, can tag that these are authentic, that they're IP, they're owned, you know, that they're not breaching anything. Like, this is something that we're all working through. When we talk about new jobs, if you have a kid that wants to do law, definitely recommend them going down the path of IP AI law. Like, there's a lot of opportunity here.
Well, you see it, Lucio, with the SAG strike at the moment and the writers' strike in the US. A lot of that is about the use of AI-generated images, of turning Tom Hanks's image into future movies without him ever getting the rights. So it's a real issue in the creative space, particularly for media too.
It is, and I think, look, I find this area around ethics. We have ethics, morality, and legislation. They're three different things. And I think that ethics and morality kind of reflects the zeitgeist of the moment. It needs to have some discussion. It being like, God knows how many thousands of years philosophers have been discussing. And there's a whole lot of areas that we do not agree just yet. And I think there's regulation. That's pretty big. Like Japan announced there's a regulation coming to the Global Economic Forum. There's a whole lot of progressive coming on that. And then areas where they merge. With that said, I think there are few of the problems that we have we don't solve, we overgrow, and few problems we need to sit down and solve. It is not an area of expertise of mine, but it's an area that I'm starved for information. I consume a lot of information. I find myself slightly irresponsible in a position of power telling you about this. But I think it goes back to the fundamental social contract, right? Don't do to others what you don't want to be done for you. Don't take away money from others if you don't want to go work for free. And respect, and I think that's some basic principles we should abide for.
And I think some of it just comes down to education as well. So there was a big outrage about computer vision in retail outlets around, they're using our images. I mean, you can go to the local supermarket and you can see yourself getting scanned now. If we communicated to customers, the reason we do this is to keep your prices low, because it's not about, we want to know everything about you so we can actually sell it to the government. It's not that. I just think organisations don't always nail the education element, so it freaks people out. And there's a trade-off. Everything has a value exchange. So, for me, do I care about you using my data so that I get more targeted branding campaigns? No, as long as that's helpful. I don't want to learn about gumboots in my email. I want, Nikes. That's helpful. That's a value exchange to me. If I want my prices low at Kmart, then I have to acknowledge then part of that is them using AI to do fraud detection and to, hold people accountable who are not using the system in a safe way. So it's a trade-off. They just don't communicate it very well. It's normally in a size 2 font when you walk in the door and you just don't see it.
And it's that funny exchange too. You've been handing your data over with flybys for years, right? You've been
Correct.
handing your sales data directly without any question, but when they're taking it from you, it can be a different conversation in your head, even though you're willing to post all your photos on Facebook.
I was going to say,
taking your image, different kettle of fish.
Yes.
I want to leave plenty of time for questions, but I want to talk firstly about that 2-year gap. So obviously, if you're working in the current generation, you've already been superseded. So what is the next area that people should be focusing on for corporations and creatives?
in terms of the technology? I think the next 2 years is just really about the technology will come. It's around trying to work with everyone in your organisations to really understand what the technology is. If you people are in this room because you understand it, there are more of people that you work with every day that don't. So it's on all of us to help them understand. Like, someone said to me the other day, it's such a great quote, it's math, not magic. Helping organisations understand that this technology is really around probability and statistics, and it's not just like halfway through it decides it wants to go rogue and kill everyone. It's not, AI is not...
We've seen that in the movies though.
Correct, and it's actually really interesting. I've done, workshops with clients for years on this, and I normally start the workshop by saying, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear artificial intelligence? And I could not, in 5 years, I did not do one group that Terminator didn't come up.
Yeah.
Like, to the point that I started creating a slide before it even came up, and I was like, sorry, and then it would come up and I'd be like, ta-da,
Yeah.
yep. It's not coming up as much anymore, which I find really heartening.
What comes up now?
ChatGPT.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think we are evolving our thinking of what AI is. So for the next 6 months, I think I talk about AI fluency, help build fluency, not expertise, but understanding what's good, and then start thinking about. Don't think about what AI is good at solving. Think about the problems you have in your organisation, the pain points for your customers, the pain points for you as employees, the pain points for productivity. What drives you nuts having to do that same thing every day. Then go find someone who understands AI and go, hey, could that help me solve that? And they'll say no if it can't.
Look, from my perspective, obviously I'm not inside the room of OpenAI and Tesla. My perspective, there's some really big statements that I personally do not believe. I think that one of that's quite common is the machine learning is the last invention that we'll ever need to make, and I do not really follow there. And
Pretty lazy, isn't it? I think that's pretty lazy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of coming an assumption that we will progress very much from correlation to causation into.
But again, it's math, not magic, and you can't.
I don't think we're gonna get there. But one that I do believe is large language models are becoming the new operating systems, yes. Which leads into kind of some of the advice. I think it depends where you are in your career or where you are in your business. I think that if you are, a director, you gotta be thinking very seriously around strategy and ethics. Very serious. I mean, besides the fluency. Fluency is the basics for everyone. And if you're a manager, I think that, you need to get your hands a little bit dirty into the tools and understanding, providing safety for your executors to do experiments without leaking your data.
Yes.
I mean, when I was at Optus, I'll tell you this, and I mean, it's being recorded. I'm not at Optus anymore, so I was working with a team to launch cloud gaming. Okay, couple of a bill industry, pretty big, right? And generative AI was all crazy, and people were just chucking data and asking questions. They're being trained in real time. My daily request to ChatGPT is, tell me better than that, just giving the general sense, tell me in 5 key points what Telstra is doing in cloud gaming. I was in the hope that someone at Telstra was just playing around to write presentations and Word documents, that the data was being linked, being trained, and I would get advantage on that. Every freaking day I was doing that. Yeah, every day.
No, but sorry, what?
Did it
I
come up
got
with something?
some,
Cough
I
up
think,
something?
I'm not sure that was real, but
Well, I was going to say ChatGPT was only trained up to 2021.
Yeah,
so.
but that's the point. That's the point. My expectation was that eventually would be unlocked a new version, like we had the Pro, which is almost real time, and I'll have that thing. I was every single day, can I get this? Can I get that? And again, remember, this is not even a year thing, and we're kind of learning. We are all equals when this launched, so kind of like, can I learn something? It didn't inform me, but it was kind of how I was trying to weaponize this for myself. And
it's where the best innovation in AI comes from, is criminals normally, right? So not taking you off,
no, but so and it's been such a short career at 7, Lucio, but we'd love having you on board for this.
But as a manager, I would, if you're a manager, even someone who's there, the tools literacy, it's very important. If you're a director advancing a career,
I think anybody, it doesn't matter what level you are, you should understand it and play with it.
The literacy of the generative AI, absolutely. I think that the tools are just overwhelming right now. You have character AI, you have Open, you have this,
Journey, DALL-E,
It's a lot to intake. So I guess you gotta have a little bit of understanding. So, and there's even a flow, right? As a director, I would consider, depending on the industry, I would consider very seriously having a coach and learn, and then experience would be coming last. But if you're a manager, I will play around the learning and experiment and a coach less. So it's kind of like the order of things.
And making the right hires in the next couple of years as well, to make sure you have the right skills in your organisation. Do you have any questions? I'm pretty sure we'll be able to hear you in this fairly small space. We'll particularly be able to hear you, 'cause you're in the front row. Hello, and introduce yourself and your name and tell us where you're from.
Sure, hi, my name's Melissa Crawford. I'm from New Zealand, from a company called Tech with Heart. So very interested in the intersection between future technology and people psychology. Kellie, you mentioned something where you talked about the barrier of entry is getting lower. I see a really interesting power dynamic happening in organisations where previously technology, the productivity gains have been for the company.
Yes.
And now I see some of those productivity gains
for the person
in the hands of the people. What's your thoughts on that evolution?
And I love it. I think it's really good that people are taking back how they work. And, I don't think it's because I hear too often, it's as millennials, they just don't want to work as hard. No, they value different things. And I think that's an awesome thing. And I think it's going to actually force companies to think differently around the employee value proposition. So I couldn't be more delighted. What worries me is when you talk to companies and they go, we've got a strategy, it's to block it. Yes. That's fine. You won't attract employees.
And why wouldn't you want to make your company more productive if that's the way that they choose to work and it's effective?
The risk is, and we know this from the research too, is that 70% of people who are using it are not telling their employer. And the risk with that is that you don't reinvent or redesign what work looks like. So you end up, you don't cash the productivity benefits because that person just works less, but they're not doing anything more with that time that could be more productive, or we don't change the processes and the people who aren't using it luck out. And so organisations should be brave and be like, okay, we're okay. Here's what you don't do with it. Here's the framework for how you use it. And we'd love your ideas, because, some of the most tricky AI problems now are getting solved by people in year 7, year 8 on global challenges, because they're digital natives and they get how to use this technology. So why are we not harnessing them and pointing it at the biggest wicked problems we've got in our society and in our organisations and the way we work, and unlock that? So I think it's exciting.
And then it becomes a top-down decision to actually allow that sort of younger generation potentially, or digital generation, to actually use that to their... It
comes back to leadership. If you ask me, the one thing that I'm grappling with at the moment is how to teach leaders to lead through the era of generative AI. Make bold decisions. Don't just talk about it. You see so many execs stand up and go, AI is really important to our business and data is very important. And then you're their investment decisions are not to fund a cloud platform. They're not actually they're doing one use case of AI.
Maybe they have that external focus and not necessarily on their internal processes.
It's a leadership through many dimensions. It's what you say, but it's also what you invest in, what you prioritise, what you stand up and actually hold people accountable to. So I think leadership is the thing that keeps me up at night, particularly in a world where leadership tenure is shorter than ever. And this is a brand new technology full of risks, and almost like you're guaranteed as a CEO to be the one that makes the decision to implement it, but never there to see the benefits. So it's a courageous leader, but we need more of them.
Yes.
Is Parcel. I'm a writer, screenwriter, and a producer and director. I'm very interested in AI, and then I know that screen agencies and producers are using AI now to read our projects and read all our stuff. So you said that it's math, it's not magic, right? The problem with math is that there are formulae that haven't been invented.
Yes.
And for me, creativity is that it's the formula that hasn't been invented yet. It will be invented.
Yep.
But the machine only knows what
it knows.
What it knows.
Yeah.
Right. So because I've seen ads of AI companies advertising saying you can find go put through your slush and find the projects that you want to use. So how will that work in the future? Because I'm fearing that this is going to end up with the machine telling.
No.
Computer says yes or no.
This is a problem, right? I think, when I look at, and I work in a big consulting business, right? And a lot of what we are doing, we're looking at ourselves and going, half the stuff that my team do are going to be redundant. Innovation is not dead. Innovation has never become, so I have a traditional strategy, do the PowerPoint, work out your strategy and your execution plan. That stuff, like, our client's going to pay me for my expertise in, blah, 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 in 5 years when they can use ChatGPT and say, give me a roadmap of that? No. But I have an innovation practice, and that practice is going gangbusters at the moment because organisations need to think about innovative new things to apply these technologies to. What are the problems we're solving? How do you take that through a rapid ideation process? Like, AI can't think of things that haven't happened before. If you want to differentiate, you have to think about things that haven't happened before, right? So I think creativity, innovation with AI is just a recipe for success. Yeah, and we do see a lot of people worry about this. What if doctors get lazy and just do the diagnosis that the algorithm says yes?
It's already happening.
And it is, but there will always, again, I keep just saying, there will always be someone in your industry, your sector, who just doesn't, and they will be better and they will win because of it. So I think, we all could get lazy with this technology, but the one who doesn't and continuously tries to challenge will be the leader in this.
I think what I've been seeing around the oil industry, what I've been reading coming primarily from America, is the collaboration. And actually that gets me quite excited. It's almost like a companion that it can bounce ideas back and forth and augment it. And I think there is a lot of interesting area there. I think that then we go back and define what is innovation, like what is innovation? I cannot remember, and probably you know this, there's this kind of bias that we think we know more than we know. If I ask someone here how a zipper works, we cannot explain, but actually we know the hell it is. So we think about innovation, it's kind of like, what is the definition? One of the definitions perhaps is fulfilling old needs in new ways. Maybe, all right? So to some degree you can argue there's a mathematical formula on that. Maybe. It works by itself? No, I don't think so. Will? I don't think will. Now maybe someone hidden on OpenAI that has a formula that I'm not aware of. But what excites us around the collaboration, the building, the speed, there's a whole lot of stuff, I think. And I love artists. I'm learning to work even more with the creative types in our business. And it's so beautiful to observe those guys in action. It's almost like they talk poetry.
Yeah, it's a prompting, right?
It's so incentive. It's so nice.
Can create it.
They can create it. It's not very good at it.
But it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to see they speaking, because they speak poetry, the creative types. And in my mind, I see, okay, great. It's almost like the, what's it called, the hallucination. It's almost like human hallucination, but that works, and they go crazy and come back. But there are some formulas, there's a hero journeys, and there's kind of formulas you can plug in. So my ambition to collaborate to that industry is throughout collaboration. How can we team up and make this scale? It's pretty interesting.
I was going to say, but so much opportunity too, right? Like I told you, I'm a shithouse artist, but like what is it, Rafiq Anadol's done with all the AI generated art and all the computer vision. But imagine like, the thing that I keep thinking about is like in the education sector where now we can give every kid a personal tutor and they can interact back and forth 24 hours a day, or in healthcare where we can start to interact with doctors or mental health support workers outside of work hours whenever we need them. It's that interactivity. So what does that mean for art? Like I think about those like choose your own adventure books as a kid. Like could we end up in a world where we're watching a movie and we get it to generate where we want it to go next with the plot line? Like there's whole new things that we can unlock here that are just like never been possible before without this technology.
There are tools already available, and I'm using some of them.
Keep going, that's awesome.
And we also are seeing the benefits in medicine as well,
Yeah.
of using this technology for analysis,
Rapid.
for diagnostic imaging.
Yeah.
You know, there is huge benefits there as well. More questions?
Alex, I'm a data scientist building these AIs.
Oh.
I guess my question is...
All ethics questions to him
Yeah.
moving forward.
Alex can join us, please.
How do we solve for like truth? I guess society, like what do we have to chase in society for truth? Because at the moment...
This is what worries me.
Yeah.
A trillion videos and images and...
That looked very realistic, right?
And more money than Channel 7 could doing investigative journalism and...
That was a bold statement, Channel 7.
I agree with you, probably, Alex, yeah. No, but it comes down to the ethics and declaration, doesn't it, of what is AI and what is not.
Yeah.
Maybe we can see this with the Israel-Palestine conflict at the moment, where people posting fake videos on X now, I guess,
Yeah,
are earning more money than the journalists that are going over there.
yeah, yeah. You want to answer this one? or-
Well,
Do we have to change in society rather than
Yep,
use the
I've used, but you go
I
first.
think it's a great question, and we need another hour to discuss that, to be fair. But with that said, I'll give a short answer from my perspective. I think it's beyond tools. It's a cultural challenge, right? I think that we need to bring a couple of different things here. One of the things that I love in AI, at the same time I hate, is suggestion machines, okay? Whether it's YouTube or even our case, I love the fact that you can go to some players and have, oh, you watch these, you're also gonna watch that. Recommendation engines, thank you. I think that in a surface, oh yeah, it's a custom experience, but to some degree it kind of it perpetuates bias and it puts you in a black hole. You just kind of believe yes only or no only, you know what I'm coming? So I think becomes on that. And then you have the authentication perspective. So Adobe this week launched this little symbol that says everything that's generation should be on this. This attempt to be self-regulated. Another thing that we can see, and that's a big hope that I personally would have, is the big tech players, they are seeing legislation impact that will come out of responsibility of spreading fake news. It's starting up, so they develop their own, speeding up their own tools to try to get there. I do not have an answer, a simple answer, but it's something that I personally really think about it. We go to politics, man, we know someone who looks like an orange, that it's a former president.
Looks like an orange.
He got heavily supported by manipulation of this sort of technology. So it is a massive issue, man. Kellie?
Look, I think it just comes down to, and it was really interesting, right? I had this conversation talking to some leaders at the Bureau of Meteorology recently. And so if you think about, I think about, it's a 2x2 for me. It's, is the technology good for generating content? Low, high. High, but if you can't verify that it's correct, low, high. So what you want is, it's a good use case for generative, and you can verify that it's accurate. So an expert, can I use it to generate a legal contract? Yes, me. Should I? No, because I'm not a lawyer and I can't actually verify if it's good or not. And this is where uni students are going wrong with, I can't verify that essay is good or not because I don't know and I'll submit it, but I can generate it. Now, I think the role of the human experts and the organisations that we believe are reputable, this is where it becomes even more important. So back to the Bureau of Meteorology, they're like, oh, all these apps are coming out, they're generating weather. I said, yeah, but you guys have the one thing that they don't have, which is a brand that has trust. And I think trusted brands for media, all of that, you can question that, but I do think that will still play a really important role into the future. I feel like you want to challenge me, so keep going.
Well, it does come down to individual...
Are wrong, right? We value attention over truth.
Yeah, but And I see this playing out with a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old at the moment that believe everything on the internet is real. And it worries me deeply. It worries me really deeply, and particularly with generative AI, like when I go and talk to marketers about it, I'm like, it's not that you guys can't use it. What you have to be on the defensive with, though, is that someone can destroy your brand in a heartbeat with a really realistic image of your brand doing something really terrible. And so this is the world we're going to come into. Misinformation, I just don't think we've even cracked into how we're going to regulate all of that stuff yet.
And then it comes down to individual news organisations particularly verifying their content and being reputable. Yeah. And a lot of the images we're seeing being spread around TikTok and on X aren't actually AI generated. They just happen to be from either another conflict or from Syria or from another source. So that just raises a whole other area of misinformation in news. So, I mean, that can't be solved by technology. That has to actually be solved by individual organisations and citizens, I guess, making the right choices. And regulations. Alex. Don't want that misinformation to spread around the room.
I'm a journalist from Mind 3. My question was really to do with that whole...
That's a mic drop.
My question really was to do with, should Gen AI be regulated? Are we sort of sleepwalking into a serious situation here? Social media wasn't regulated. While this caused some good, it's also caused a hell of a lot of social harm. Should we pause, for example, and really sort out the regulatory...
Do you think any big tech company, like when Elon came out and went, we've got to pause, I just felt that's because he wanted to catch up.
I get that, but I'm just saying slightly more...
Look, I think regulations are coming, right? And I think there's also, if you talk to Stella Solar, who leads the National AI Centre, she's talking a lot about AI standards that are coming our way. I think it's been the big unknown. Like, it's been great that the Australian government's just reached out for papers and submissions into how we manage trustworthy AI in Australia. There was 500 submissions across Australia, so that's pretty good. People care about this. It's coming our way.
Yeah, I think bringing Alex, I'm with you, man. I know, like, I think you need to look about incentives penalization. If you think about, man, some of the fines that has been going around with some large places, like, man, half day of profit of that, like,
doesn't mean anything.
Like, I can park my car there. If I not can park my car and then do not pay the car park of $30, but I get a fine of $1. What the hell am I going to do?
But I think that brand and reputational damage is significant.
Yeah, and there's a wider issue there. Like, for example, we reported on the news this morning about a fine from the e-safety commissioner to X of $600,000 for not declaring what they're doing about child exploitation material. I mean, $600,000 to Elon Musk is, as Lucio says, a drop in the ocean. So that is not the solution to that problem. We probably have time for 2 very quick questions to remain. Yep.
Ingrid from Brazil.
Ingrid from Brazil.
Lucio from Brazil.
Yeah. I know.
Sorry, and I said Lucio spoke Spanish before. I meant Portuguese, of course.
I do speak Spanish as well.
Go ahead.
English is a work in progress, so I will read just to be sure. Nowadays, we talk a lot about the advantage of the artificial intelligence because it's a inevitable thing. So, in your opinion, because you guys are the specialist on this, I would love to know, apart from the myth that it will take people's job, what is the real harm that artificial intelligence could do to us?
The biggest implication?
Yeah, in a negative sense.
Biggest harm.
I think the obvious one that we're talking, that's part of the same debate here, is the scale and misinformation. I personally think that's a pretty risky thing. And don't look, advertising builds culture and content builds culture, and we know what happens for the good and the bad, right? We need, it's in my view, is a big risk on that. I don't know.
No, I feel the same. Misinformation is the one that keeps me up at night. The rest are really easily, like, not easily, but we have strategies for managing risks around bias, around, secure algorithms, cyber attacks, all these things we know how to manage. The misinformation thing is more of a cultural thing and a psychological thing, and that is something is really hard to get a grasp on. And that goes from misinformation around bullying in schools and creating naked photos of children and starting to, all the way up to geopolitical tensions, right? So it's a broad spectrum, and it's one that I just think it's not organisations control deal with that, because it'll be, you know, individuals acting maliciously around it, and that really worries me.
And that's again down to individuals, isn't it? Not actually the technology. One final question.
I think I was given the talking stick. Hi, I'm Alex. I work as a creative director in advertising. And just to sort of build on a couple discussions going on in the room about negativity, do you believe that the development of AI is truly a democratic process? You know, when we saw the rise of the internet, everybody with a computer could tap into it and become whoever they wanted to be. But in this case, you know, generative AI, ChatGPT, Firefly are really low-hanging fruits that everybody can sort of mess around with, but the real money driving into the development of AI is happening behind closed doors with big organizations. Is that posing a risk for the ethics and how AI will form as a whole?
I think, and you said it before, and I kind of in my head went, I don't agree. I don't think organised.
Let's not end in a fight.
I think it leads to your point. Is large language models cost a shitload of money, and the investment continues to be like there will no one, like everyone thinks they have to build their own large language model. We know that there's probably only going to be about 5 or 6 dominant players in large language models. Organisations will use those to train. So you're right. We are at the disposal of 5 or 6 large organisations, but my belief is that they will be held very accountable to the standards by which they do, because, and it comes back to regulation, right? And the open source community, and you know, Hugging Face is doing some really interesting things, but I think you're right. Like, I think it is a risk that needs to be managed. I do think, at the same time, AI has never been more democratised in terms of how we use it and deliver value. So I think it's a trade-off. Yep.
Yep, nothing to add. You're right.
Well,
Kellie's always right. We've done this a few times, so.
Well, thank you so much. We don't have time to solve all the world's problems, but I think we certainly tackled some of the issues around AI. Fascinating discussion, and I hope you enjoy the rest of South by Southwest this week, and please enjoy the hospitality here at the 7. And the sun keeps shining according to the weather, and all is good.
Which is a reputable source.
Yeah, which is a very reputable source.